In September of 480 BC, the temples on the Acropolis were collapsing into ash. Athens was burning, and the man responsible for abandoning it was standing on the shore of Salamis, watching the smoke rise because he had chosen to trade his city for a trap. Themistocles had emptied Athens days earlier. Every citizen, every family, loaded onto ships and scattered across the nearby islands. He had left nothing behind except bait. And now 800 Persian warships were closing in on the narrow strait where the Greek fleet was anchored, exactly where Themistocles wanted them. Every allied commander wanted to retreat. The Spartans demanded withdrawal. The Corinthians backed them. The coalition was falling apart in front of him. And Themistocles, the man with no city, no allies and no second chance, was about to send a secret message to the Persian king. Not a plea, not a surrender. A lie so audacious that if it failed, it would destroy the last fleet standing between Persia and the extinction of the Greek world. By the early 5th century BC, the Persian Empire stretched from Egypt to India, governing tens of millions of people. The Greek city-states, by comparison, were tiny, fractured, and constantly fighting each other. In 490 BC, the Persians had sent a force to punish Athens. Against all odds, the Athenians won at Marathon. It was a humiliation the Persian court never forgot. The new king, Xerxes, spent 4 years building the largest invasion force the ancient world had ever seen. Modern historians estimate between 100,000 and 300,000 soldiers, a fleet of over 1,000 warships. He built a bridge of boats across the Hellespont so his army could walk from Asia to Europe in a single crossing. He cut a canal through an entire mountain peninsula because his father's fleet had been wrecked rounding the coast 10 years earlier, and Xerxes refused to let the sea decide his fate twice. This was not a war. It was a machine designed to erase Greece from the map. The man who saw this coming was the last person Athens wanted to trust. Themistocles was born around 524 BC to an undistinguished father and a foreign mother, either Thracian or Carian depending on the source. In a society obsessed with bloodline purity, he was a half-blood. Not even a citizen until democratic reforms opened the door. Plutarch tells us he exercised as a boy at a gymnasium reserved for outsiders and illegitimate children. One of his teachers told him he would become nothing moderate, that he would be either a great good or a great evil for Athens. He chose politics. He clawed his way to chief magistrate by 493 BC through an intelligence that unsettled everyone around him. If you are enjoying this story so far, hit subscribe. It costs nothing, takes a second, and helps this channel keep bringing you the battles history forgot to teach. In 483 BC, miners struck a massive silver vein at Laurium. Standard practice was to split the windfall among the citizens. Themistocles stood up in the assembly and told them to spend every coin-building warships instead. 200 triremes, 3 banked warships rowed by 170 men each. Athens had no navy. Its power came from armored infantry. Themistocles could not sell the fleet as defense against Persia because the invasion was still years away. So he lied again. He told Athens the ships were for defeating the island of Aegina, a nearby rival with a strong navy. The assembly voted yes. His political rival Aristides, who opposed the plan, was formally voted into exile the following year. And then came the part nobody celebrates. 34,000 men had to be recruited and trained to row. Farmers who had never touched an oar. Laborers who had never set foot on a ship. Shopkeepers who could not swim. Month after month, Themistocles converted an entire city into a naval power while its citizens still thought they were preparing for a local war. This decision seemed small at the time. It was not. 3 years later, Xerxes crossed into Europe. While Leonidas and his 300 Spartans died holding the pass at Thermopylae to buy Greece 3 days, Themistocles commanded the fleet at the naval battle of Artemisia. When Thermopylae fell, the road to Athens was open. Themistocles ordered the city evacuated. Women, children, the elderly, loaded onto boats and sent to the islands. The men boarded the warships. The Persians marched into an empty city, killed the handful of old men barricaded on the Acropolis, and set everything on fire. The Greek fleet, 370 ships, was now anchored between the island of Salamis and the burning mainland. A council of war erupted. The Peloponnesian commanders demanded retreat to the Isthmus of Corinth. The Corinthian commander told Themistocles he had no right to speak because Athens had fallen and he was a man without a city. Themistocles replied that 200 warships were a better city than Corinth would ever be, and that if the Allies retreated, the Athenian fleet would sail to Italy and leave Greece to die alone. The council voted to stay, barely, but Themistocles knew the vote would collapse overnight. He had hours, so he sent his personal slave, a man named Xerxes, across the strait in a small boat under cover of darkness to the Persian fleet. Pay attention to this detail because it explains everything that happened next. Xerxes carried a message for Xerxes, claiming Themistocles had switched sides, that the Greeks were about to flee, and that if the Persians blocked both exits of the strait immediately, they could trap and annihilate the entire Greek navy in a single morning. Xerxes had been warned not to fight in narrow waters. Queen Artemisia of Halicarnassus, the one commander he respected most, had told him the strait was a trap. He ignored her. The message told him exactly what he already wanted to believe. That night, the Persian fleet sealed both ends of the strait. Xerxes had his golden throne carried to the slopes of Mount Aigaleo so he could watch the slaughter at dawn. At sunrise, the Persian fleet rowed into the strait in 3 packed lines. They expected to find abandoned ships and panicked sailors trying to flee. They were rowing in to collect a surrender, not fight a battle. The Greeks were not running, they were waiting. A war cry echoed across the water. According to the playwright Aeschylus, who fought that morning, the Greeks chanted as they surged forward. In the confined waters, the Persian ships could not turn, could not retreat, could not use their numbers. The first line was driven into the second. The second crashed into the third. Oars shattered, hulls cracked. The entire formation collapsed in on itself. Persian sailors who fell overboard drowned because most of them could not swim. Artemisia, the same commander who had warned Xerxes not to fight here, rammed and sank one of her own allied ships just to escape. Xerxes, watching from his throne, did not realize the sinking ship was Persian. He reportedly said that his men had become women and his women had become men. By sunset, the strait was choked with wreckage. The Greeks lost roughly 40 ships. The Persians lost between 200 and 300. The fleet that was supposed to erase Greece had been gutted in a strait so narrow its own size became the weapon that killed it. Within days, Xerxes retreated to Asia. Terrified the Greeks would sail north and cut off his escape, he left a force behind under his general Mardonius. The following summer, at Plataea, the Greeks destroyed it. Persia never invaded Greece again. The navy Themistocles, built from a silver mine, became the foundation of Athenian power. Athens entered a golden age of democracy, philosophy, and architecture that shaped every civilization that came after it. Military academies still teach Salamis as proof that terrain, deception, and intelligence can defeat any number of ships or soldiers. The most dangerous thing you can do to your enemy is let them believe they have already won. Themistocles did not live to see any of it matter. After the war, his arrogance turned Athens against him. He built a personal shrine dedicated to his own brilliance. The Spartans accused him of treason. In 471 BC, Athens voted into exile the man who had saved it. He wandered Greece, unwelcome everywhere, until the Athenians converted his exile into a death sentence. Out of options, Themistocles fled to the only place on earth that would take him, Persia. The man who had destroyed the Persian fleet presented himself to Artaxerxes I, the son of the king he had humiliated. He was given the governorship of 3 cities, Magnesia for his bread, Lampsacus for his wine, Myus for his meat. According to Plutarch, when Artaxerxes eventually ordered him to lead a campaign against his own homeland, Themistocles invited his friends to a final banquet, said his farewells, and took his own life. He was roughly 65 years old. The man who saved Greek civilization died in a foreign country, under the authority of the empire he had beaten, governing a city most Greeks could not find on a map. If you wrote that ending as fiction, nobody would believe it. Hit subscribe and tell us in the comments. Was Athens right to banish Themistocles, Or did the city destroy the only man who truly understood what it needed to survive?